Hello folks, welcome to Legacy IAS. In today's video, we'll be looking into India hosting G20 summit. What should it look for, or what are the conditions on which, the present conditions on which it is hosting G20. Okay, let's get into the video. Now, we'll just look into a brief history as to what is G20, how is it made of. G20 was established in September 1999 as a forum of finance ministers, central bank governors and the European Union, and this happened in the aftermath of East Asian financial crisis of 1997. Okay, here the member countries are given as USA, Japan, Germany, etc. But even among this, the groupings are such as there are certain G8 countries, there are 11 emerging economies or your developing countries, and EU. Okay, now to G20, each year the presidency keeps changing just so that no one party will dominate the entire group. Okay, and then the presidency is chosen based on a mutual consent, okay, rather than election or voting, etc. Alright, now each year the presidency will invite a certain number of guests or certain countries as guests. Okay, this year at G20, India will be inviting Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands, Nigeria. Okay, and then see, International Solar Alliance, because we lay extreme importance and stress on renewable energy. Okay, and then Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure and Asian Development Bank as guest international organizations. Alright, now if you see the spread of G20 in the world map, it looks like this. Now, what is the contribution of G20? Okay, as a collective, we have multiple organizations: G4, G7, G8, G20, G7. All these things are there, right? Now, what specifically is the contribution of a G20 as a grouping? Okay, the G20 members represent more than 80% of the world GDP, 75% of international trade, and 60% of the world population. Okay, so it is pretty much a huge block. A huge chunk of power, huge chunk of geopolitics, huge chunk of geostrategy are all involved in this block. In the section that we saw, this particular countries hold a huge chunk, okay, a huge chunk in the sustenance and continuity. Now it is a premier forum on international economic cooperation. Basically, as we saw in the earlier slides, that it is an economic organization, primarily economic now, which is developing and branching out into multiple zones, be it disaster management, be it sustainability, okay, be it terrorism, be it regional security, be it stability. Okay, among all those factors, now they are branching out. Now, how is this G20 meeting taking place? For everything, in your recent news, you would have seen that in your UNGA, UN General Assembly, our External Affairs Minister Mr. Jayanagara was addressing as to what can people expect out of the G20 summit. Okay, now when we say UNGA, okay, even there is a premise, there is a way that meetings are bound to happen. Similarly, in G20, how is it supposed to happen, or how is it happening? Okay, see, as it is mentioned here, the presidency is annual and held on a rotation basis. What are the tracks for discussion in this sort of diplomacy? One is financial track. Now here we are telling financial track and Sherpa's track example. These are the indication that these are main aspects, priorities, which are followed by others too. Okay, such being meetings held at the level of Sherpas, ministerial meetings, working groups, etc. Alright. Now India is hosting G20, but the climate, the political climate, the economic climate, the geo-stability, whatever we are talking about, is it still the same, or is it altered, or is it at all safe, or what is the balance of power criteria? Okay, and most importantly, is the region secure? India will assume its leadership for 1 year, that is from December 1, 2022 to November 30, 2023. Okay, now what are the issues on which we are already walking on eggshells? Based on that G20 we are conducting, what are those eggshells? So one is the security issues, region of the Indo-Pacific, okay, China's aggression. Alright, now Now the scenario is that we are hosting G20 on the aftermath. Now we cannot tell that COVID-19 is completely eliminated or eradicated, but we have gotten used to it. Okay, it's not yet returned to a flu-like scenario, but we are used to it because it's not anymore anonymous. Okay, now we have to dictate the economy on the aftermath of COVID-19. Okay, not just economy, anything for that aspect. It is an aftermath of COVID-19 impact. Okay, now we have ongoing Ukraine-Russia war crisis. Okay, and we have unresolved standoff with China in the eastern Ladakh region. We have very much strained relationship with our immediate neighbor being Pakistan. Okay, and addressing humanitarian needs of Afghanistan. Okay, Sri Lankan economic crisis, issues in Myanmar. Amidst all these scenarios, India is hosting G20. Okay, now what will India be addressing in the G20? Right, we just spoke about the issues. Now it is likely that India will address these issues in the G20. Right, along with that, what will it be coupling with? India will be addressing the challenges faced by developing countries, alright, and the reform of governance of multilateral financial institutions. Basically, our economy has to fall back on track after all the turmoil that we have faced. That has to be collectively decided and made into a decision, a topic by the G20. Okay. Security issues, terrorism, political complexities, economic emergence, compatibility post-pandemic, etc. Right, amidst all the things that we just said, okay, India has to find a way to incorporate these things along with other things and make sure that the regional stability, the economic stability will continue. Okay, now to prepare for a G20 summit, okay, there will be countries who would have already hosted it. Okay, those countries will give pointers, somewhat like pointers as to the new hosting country as to how you should host it or what you should do it. Okay, India has earmarked almost 100 crore rupees for hosting G20 alone. Okay, now this concept of Troika, that is, look at the word here, it consists of current, previous and incoming presidencies. Previously, Indonesia was the one which was hosting. Okay, before Indonesia, the country that hosted was Italy, and the country which was to host next was India. Okay, now as India is hosting, okay, the same scenario, current, previous, incoming presidencies, the one who is hosting currently is India, the one who hosted it previously was Indonesia, and the one who will be hosting it the next year will be Brazil. Okay, now one important or interesting thing about this Troika is that this is the first time where all the three countries are developing and emerging economies. Okay, now if you like our content, please share and subscribe it with your friends. Thank you.